My name is Caleb, and I was 23 when my father told me not to come home after college. I still remember the sound of his voice, flat, cold, like a door closing. I had called to tell him I was finally graduating, that all those nights working at the diner and studying under flickering lights had paid off. The phone felt heavier than it should. I stared at my diploma lying on the dorm desk. 4 years of sleepless nights, part-time shifts, and instant noodles all summed up in one thin piece of paper. I wanted to hear my father's pride. Just once. When he answered, there was silence long enough to make me smile nervously. Dad? I did it. I graduated. He breathed out like the word annoyed him. So you finally finished that fancy studying. What now? You think that'll build a roof? My throat tightened. I just wanted you to know I made it. He said, don't bother coming back. You made your choice when you left. I sat there listening to the empty line. The room buzzed with distant cheers from other graduates calling home. I wiped my eyes and whispered to no one. Then I'll build my own way home. Outside, fireworks lit the night sky. Everyone laughed, took pictures, hugged parents. I folded my gown neatly, slid the diploma into my bag, and walked out into the dark campus. My hands trembled, not from anger, but from something colder. If he didn't want me back, fine, but I would still keep what he taught me. I would still build. Graduation day arrived bright and noisy. Families waved banners and threw flowers. I smiled for photos with classmates, pretending not to notice the empty spot beside me. When the crowd thinned, a tall janitor pushed his cart past the bleachers. He stopped and said softly, "Congratulations, son." I thanked him. His name tag read Lowell. He handed me a paper cup of coffee. You build things, don't you? I can tell by your hands. I blinked. I used to help my dad in his workshop. He nodded. Keep them busy. Idle hands forget how to heal. Then he wheeled his cart away. That night, when I returned to the dorm, I found a small wooden bird sitting on my desk. The carving was rough but graceful, wings spread mid-flight. No note. I held it carefully, feeling warmth rise in my chest. Someone cared enough to make this. Maybe the janitor had left it. I placed it beside my diploma, one symbol of what I'd earned, one symbol of what I'd lost. I whispered. Maybe both mean the same thing. The old campus workshop became my hiding place. It smelled of pine dust and machine oil. I swept the floor, repaired a broken stool, and forgot the sting of my father's words for a while. Mr. Lowell often worked nearby, humming old tunes. He doesn't discuss with me, but sometimes he'd leave a thermos of soup by my bench or hand me a file without being asked. One afternoon I asked, "You carve too?" He smiled. "Used to. These hands shake now, but the wood still listens." We worked in silence after that, the kind of silence that feels safe. As the days passed, students dropped by asking if I could fix things, a leg of a chair, a drawer handle. I always said yes. It felt good to mend something. One evening, as I wiped my hands clean, I noticed a carving on the bench, my name half faded. It looked old, like it had been there years before I arrived. I knelt closer. Same crooked handwriting. My father used to sign on our projects. A chill ran through me. I turned to ask Mr. Lowell about it, but he was already gone. Kindness became my routine. I repaired broken chairs for students who couldn't afford new ones. I fixed old desks for free. The janitors started calling me the quiet builder. Mr. Lowell appeared now and then, leaving gifts, new sandpaper, a sharper blade, a small lunchbox of stew. He never asked for anything. Once, while cleaning his cart, I saw a photo in his wallet. 2 young carpenters standing beside a wooden rocking chair. My father was one of them. I froze. The other man must have been Lowell. That night I couldn't sleep. Memories flooded back. Dad teaching me to plane wood, the smell of cedar, Mom laughing as sawdust flew everywhere. Why hadn't Dad ever mentioned a partner named Lowell? The next morning, I asked carefully, "Did you ever know a man named Harold Carter?" Lowell's eyes flickered, but he said only, "Names fade. Craft remains." He turned and left before I could ask more. I looked down at my hands, at the small cuts and scratches from work. Maybe building was the only language both men spoke, the one that still connected them through me. I began writing letters to my father every night. I never mailed them. In each one, I said the things I couldn't on the phone. How sorry I was, how I still remembered his laughter when we built my first toy boat, how I wished he'd been at graduation. I ended every letter the same way. I'll find a way to make you proud. One night, I noticed a broken rocking chair sitting in the back corner of the workshop. Its curved frame looked exactly like the one Dad had made for Mom years ago. The sight of it hit me hard. I decided to repair it quietly, piece by piece. When Lowell saw me sanding the splintered arm, he joined in without a word. His old hands guided mine. He murmured, "Some things are meant come full circle." I wanted to ask what he meant, but his eyes looked far away, lost in memory. By the time the bell rang for closing, the chair's frame was whole again. As we packed up, Lowell smiled faintly. "You've got his patience," he said. "Whose?" I asked. He didn't answer. The letters piled up in my drawer like secret pieces of my heart. I read them sometimes after working late, wondering if I'd ever have the courage to send even one. Days turned into weeks. The workshop became a second home. My friends went off chasing jobs in bright cities, while I stayed behind, earning just enough fixing things for people who forgot my name but remember my work. One rainy night, I saw Lowell sweeping alone under flickering light. I handed him a mug of tea. "You shouldn't work this late," I said. He smiled. "Wouldn't people both take time to heal?" Then he looked at my letters stacked near my tools. "You ever plan to send those?" I shook my head. He wouldn't read them. "Maybe not," he said softly, "but maybe someone else needs to." Before I could ask what he meant, thunder rolled outside. He turned off the light and said, "You'll understand soon." Later, as I wrote another letter, I noticed something odd. One of the old carvings on the workshop door bore the same initials as my father's, H.C. It felt like the past was trying to speak through the wood. The half-finished rocking chair became my obsession. Every evening after work, I sanded and carved until my hands went numb. It looked just like the one my father built for my mother when I was a kid, the chair she'd rock me to sleep in while humming soft songs. Lowell often stood behind me quietly, passing me sandpaper, holding the frame steady. Sometimes I caught him smiling at the curves of the wood, like it meant something to him too. One evening I asked, "Why are you helping me?" He chuckled. "Because I've seen that design before. Long time ago." I froze. "Where?" He only said, "In another shop that used to smell like home." His words stayed with me all night. When the chair was almost done, I traced the grain and whispered, "Mom would have loved this." Lowell replied softly, "She still does." Before I could ask how he knew about her, he was already walking away, broom in hand, humming the same tune my mother used to sing. The week before graduation ended, Lowell brought me a small wooden box. Inside were old carving tools, chisels, planes, a mallet, each one engraved with tiny initials, H.C. My heart jumped. "Where did you get these?" He smiled gently. "They were left here a long time ago. Maybe they belong with someone who still knows how to use them." I held them carefully. They were my father's style, simple but perfect. "I can't take these," I said. "You already have," he replied and turned to go. When I looked up again, he was gone. That night, I tried calling his number from the staff list, but it didn't exist. The next morning, I went to workshop early. His broom leaned against the wall, his locker door slightly open. Inside, the shelves were empty except for a folded cleaning rag and a small tag that read Lowell's Tools, handle with care. I whispered into the quiet room, "Thank you," but a strange unease settled over me, like I'd lost something important before realizing what it was. By Monday, Lowell was still gone. The janitor said he'd taken early retirement, but no one knew where he went. I felt hollow walking into the empty workshop. His absence made every creak of wood louder. Then I saw it, a small wooden box sitting on my bench, one I'd never noticed before. The top was carved with a bird in flight, the same design as the carving he'd left me months ago. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a small wooden coin carved with my father's old workshop symbol, a circle with 3 intersecting lines. The note had only 4 words written in careful handwriting. Heal what was broken. No name. No return address. I sat there for a long time staring at it, my mind racing. How could Lowell have known that mark? It wasn't something my father ever shared beyond family. I ran my thumb over the coin until I felt the grooves warm beneath my skin. Somehow, I knew it was time to go home. I packed my few clothes, my father's tools, and the car burdened into a duffel bag. The campus looked smaller now, quieter. The bus ride home took 6 hours through rain and winding hills. As we crossed into my hometown, I saw the same rusted sawmill sign and the wooden bridge where I used to fish as a boy. My heart pounded. When the bus stopped, I walked down the narrow dirt road to our old house. The porch looked tired. The garden was overgrown. Then I saw him, my father, standing by the shed, hammer in hand, repairing a fence. He turned at the sound of my footsteps. His hair had gone almost white, his back slightly bent. For a second, his eyes softened, then hardened again. I told you not to come back, he said flatly. I swallowed hard. I'm not staying. I just came to fix something. He looked at me long, then said quietly, You sound just like her. Before I could answer, he turned and walked inside, leaving the door half open behind him. The first night home felt like stepping into a ghost house. Everything was the same, yet older. The creaky floors, the faded photo of Mom smiling beside a younger version of Dad, the smell of pine dust and varnish. I slept in my old room, the one with the broken window latch and the carved initials on the desk corner. E+M, me and my sister, back when we still laughed together. At dawn, I heard hammering outside. I found Dad fixing a broken fence post. Without a word, I grabbed another hammer and joined him. He didn't stop me. He didn't tell me to leave either. We worked in silence until the sun rose high. Then he said, You remember how to measure twice and cut once? I nodded. You taught me. He grunted. Didn't think you were listening. That was his way of saying he noticed. When we finished, I set down my hammer and said quietly, I came to fix more than fences. He didn't look up. Some things can't be fixed. Maybe, I said, but they can still be mended. For the first time in years, he paused and didn't walk away. The days that followed were slow, heavy with unspoken things. He went about chores as if I weren't there, but he didn't send me away. I repaired the rocking chair still sitting broken in the corner of the porch, the same one my mom used to use. When he saw me working on it, he froze mid-step. That's your mother's chair, he said, voice low. I know, I said, and she'd want a hole. He didn't answer, but later I found a folded blanket, the one Mom used to keep over the chair, neatly laid beside my workbench. That night, we ate in silence until he finally said, Your letters came. My heart stopped. You read them? He nodded once. Every one. I couldn't speak. Then he said, almost whispering, I didn't deserve them. Or you. For the first time, I saw something break in his eyes. We sat there long after dinner, not saying much, but silence finally felt like healing, not punishment. The next morning, I brought him the small box Lowell had given me. When he opened it, his hands trembled. These are mine, he whispered. Where did you get them? There was a man at my workshop, I said. His name was Lowell. He gave them to me, said they belonged with someone who still knew how to use them. Dad's eyes filled slowly. Lowell, I haven't heard that name in 30 years. You knew him? He nodded. He was my apprentice. When I lost your mother, I shut the shop and disappeared. Lowell kept the place alive for me when I couldn't. I stared at him, stunned. He told me to heal what was broken. Dad's voice cracked. That sounded like him. We sat together, the old tools between us, like two halves of the same memory finally fitting again. Then he looked at me and said, You've already done what he asked, son. One evening, Dad asked me to help him rebuild the workshop. We cleared the dust, repaired shelves, and set the old tools back in place. The space began to smell of sawdust and oil again, of home. While I was sweeping, I noticed a small carving above the window, a bird in flight. It was the same design Lowell had given me. I turned to Dad. "You made this, didn't you?" He smiled faintly. "Lowell carved it for your mother the day you were born. Said every home needs something that remembers how to fly." My throat tightened. We worked until sunset. He leaned against the doorway and said quietly, "You remind me of her more every day." I looked at him. Then I must be doing something right. He laughed softly, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in years. As we locked up, he handed me one of his chisels. "It's yours now. Finish what I started." And for the first time since I was a child, I felt like I truly belonged. Weeks passed, and peace slowly replaced the weight between us. Dad started teaching me again, little things about patience, angles, and how it could tell its own story if you listened. One night, while cleaning the bench, I found a photo tucked behind an old frame. It was a mom holding me as a baby, Dad standing beside her, and a young man in the corner smiling low. My chest ached with something I couldn't name. Dad came over, saw the photo, and said softly, "He was the one who pushed me to keep building after she died." I didn't listen, but he never gave up on either of us. I nodded. He didn't give up on me either. Dad put a hand on my shoulder. Then maybe this is his final gift, to bring us back. That night, I sat on the porch, the repaired rocking chair creaking gently beneath me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel angry or small or forgotten. I just fell home. Spring settled over the town, and the workshop filled with light again. Each day, Dad and I built small things, birdhouses, stools, even a toy truck for a neighbor's kid. He showed me the old tricks I'd forgotten, and sometimes I caught him humming the tune Mom used to sing. One afternoon, I found him sitting by the rocking chair, staring at nothing. "She used to sit here every evening," he said. "Read your letters out loud, even the ones I told her not to keep." I sat beside him. "I wish I'd known." He nodded slowly. "I told her I wanted you to stay home. She told me you needed to go find your own tools before you could build anything worth keeping." I smiled faintly. She was right. He sighed. She usually was. For the first time, he reached for my hand. His palm was rough but warm. "I wasn't ready to lose her," he said. "So when you left, it felt like losing her again." "I never meant to leave you behind," I said. He looked at me. "I know that now." The air between us felt lighter. The fences inside us were finally coming down. One morning, a letter arrived, addressed to me, but in handwriting I didn't recognize. The return name stopped me cold. Lowell Harris. My hand shook as I opened it. It was dated months before his death. "If you're reading this, it means I've gone home. Don't mourn me. I've seen what I needed to see. Your hands building again. Your father's heart softening again. Tell him I kept my promise to your mother, that her boys would find their way back to each other." At the bottom was a drawing of that bird in flight. When I showed Dad, he turned pale. He promised her that? Yes. She asked him to look after me if things ever went wrong. Dad's eyes filled. I didn't know. I thought he vanished after she died. We sat together in silence, the letter between us. It felt like Lowell had just walked through the door again, whispering from beyond wood and time. "Keep building." A week later, Dad came into the shop with an old envelope. "This was your mother's idea, too," he said, handing it to me. "It's the deed to this land. It's yours if you want it." I froze. "Dad, I can't." "You can," he said firmly. "You already rebuilt the place. I only want to see it full again." I held the paper, my chest tight. "I don't even know what to build yet." He smiled softly. "Start with something you needed when you were lost." That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought about every kid who never got a chance to learn real skills. Every janitor's son I taught small repairs. Every person like me try to rebuild from brokenness. By dawn, I had an idea that felt bigger than both of us. A carpentry school for kids who had nothing but hands willing to learn. The next morning, I told him. His eyes shone with quiet pride. "Then let's make sure the next generation never forgets what we did here." We worked for weeks turning the workshop into something new. We painted the walls, fixed the roof, and cleared out years of forgotten tools. Dad even built a new sign, Lowell's Haven, School of Craft and Hope. When it was done, we held a small gathering. Neighbors came, bringing pie and laughter. Children ran around the yard, touching tools like they were treasures. Dad stood beside me, watching with wet eyes. Your mother would have loved this. I nodded. I think she's here already. As the sun went down, he leaned closer. You know, when you sent that letter in the chair, I thought my heart couldn't take it. It broke me open. That was the point, I said softly, to let something new grow there. He smiled, tears glinting in the light. You did good, son, real good. I didn't answer. I just looked at him and felt peace settle in a way words couldn't hold. Weeks later, Dad called me early one morning. I was thinking, he said, voice shaking. That chair you sent with a note, I never thanked you for what it said. I remembered every word of that letter. I built this with the hands you taught me to use. Maybe love can be carved back into shape too. He cleared his throat. When I read that, it was like hearing your mother again. I wanted to call, but I couldn't speak. I just cried. I cried too, I admitted. Silence held us for a moment, soft and clean. Then he said, I kept that chair by my bed now. Every morning I look at it, and it reminds me to try again. I smiled. That's all any of us can do. He exhaled slowly. You healed what I broke, son, and you did it with love. For the first time in my life, those words felt like a blessing, not forgiveness. The morning of the school's opening felt like the start of a new season. The sky was clear. The scent of sawdust and varnish floated through the air, and the sound of hammering mixed with laughter. I had barely slept, nervous and excited. Dad arrived early, wearing his old work apron. He'd polished every tool until it gleamed. Your first students will be here soon, he said, handing me a small box. Inside lay Mom's wooden pendant, the one she used to wear when she painted furniture. She'd want you to have this, he said softly. I put it around my neck. Feels like she's watching. He nodded, voice thick. She is. When the kids arrived, some shy, some wild-eyed, I showed them how to hold a plane, how to sand along the grain, how patience could turn rough wood into something beautiful. Dad watched quietly from the doorway. Every now and then, he smiled in that small, proud way that needed no words. By evening, as the last student left, he turned to me. You've done what I couldn't. You've turned this place into hope. I looked around at the benches, the glowing wood, the smell of new beginnings. No, Dad, I said. We did. A few days later, I found another envelope in the mail. No return address, only the same simple handwriting from Lowell's last letter. Inside was a single sentence. The workshop's key belongs to the one who never stopped building. And a bank draft, enough to keep the school running for years. I stood there stunned, tears blurring my sight. When I showed Dad, he just nodded slowly. He planned this, every bit of it. We decided to carve a plaque for him. It read, in memory of Lowell Harris, the silent builder who kept his promise. At the unveiling, Dad placed his hand on the wood. You know, he whispered, I think he was waiting for me to say thank you. I smiled. Then let's make sure his story keeps building. That night, I lit a candle in the window. The flame flickered against the walls, painting shadows of tools, wood, and hands, everything that had healed us. Months passed. The school grew, word spread, and kids from nearby towns came to learn. Some of them had stories like mine, broken homes, lost parents, silence where love should have been. I saw pieces of myself in each of them. One afternoon, a boy named Caleb stayed late, trying to fix a cracked chair leg. It's no good, he said, frustrated. I knelt beside him. Then fix it again. You only fail when you stop trying. He looked at me with wet eyes. That's what my dad used to say before he left. My chest ached. Mine, too, I said quietly. But sometimes they come back. When the repair finally held, his grin made something inside me unclench. Later, as I swept the floor, I thought about Lowell, Mom, and Dad, All the people whose love had shaped me through hurt and time. The sound of hammers and laughter echoed outside. It was the sound of second chances, louder than any apology, softer than forgiveness, but somehow both at once. That winter, Dad fell ill for a few weeks. I took care of him, making soup and keeping the fire lit. One night, as the wind rattled the windows, he said, "When you sent that chair, I thought I'd lost you forever, but that piece of wood brought you home." I smiled sadly. "I built it to remember Mom. And it made me remember who I was," he whispered. "You saved me without even trying." He asked me to sit beside him. "Promise me you'll keep teaching. Keep building." "I promise." He smiled, then closed his eyes. That's all I needed to hear. He recovered slowly, but those nights changed something between us. He became gentler, more open. Sometimes I'd catch him carving tiny birds from scrap wood and leaving them on the students' tables. For luck, he said with a wink, the workshop had turned from a place of silence into a place of song. And every note in that song began with forgiveness. Years later, I stood before a new class of students, the air filled with the scent of fresh-cut pine. Dad's old rocking chair sat in the corner, polished and strong. Before we began, I told them my story, the fight, the distance, the letter, the chair that made my father call in tears. They listened quietly, eyes wide. I said, "This place exists because one man believed kindness could fix what anger broke." He was right. Then I pointed to the plaque on the wall. "Remember, hands that build in love always rebuild what pain has broken." The room was silent for a heartbeat, then filled with the sound of saws and laughter again. I looked up toward the window, where sunlight spilled across the wood. It felt like Mom's warmth, like Lowell's steady smile, like Dad's proud silence. And I knew, every board, every nail, every scar in this place was proof that love, once lost, could still find its way home. Thanks for listening.